Hi guys, Jared here with Day Traders FX. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. Time for the daily video. I just want to start off by reminding everybody that if you'd like a free trial to join us for our live trading group this week, remember we meet twice a day, about every 12 hours all week long. You can go to daytradersfx.com, join the group, and if you click on the sign up button here, the subscribe button there, that will give you a free 5-day trial. And you're welcome to cancel at any time, but it's 5 days free. It gives you basically the whole week to try us out and see how we attack these markets. Okay, let's get on to things here. U.S. markets are definitely they're down just a little bit, and we saw quite a big reaction. We're going to look at this on the charts in just a few moments of the euro specifically, but we had some pretty bad news, or some news that really shocked everybody out of Cyprus, which is that tax of depositors tied to the bailout. So those that have money in bank accounts in Cyprus are going to be taxed potentially a pretty healthy amount tied to this bailout that Cyprus needs to, of course, avoid bankruptcy slash defaulting on loans and bonds and so on. And that caused a big shakeup in everything. So we're going to look at that on the charts and see what that means and see how it goes. Quick little look at the calendar today. We have tons of stuff out today. Monetary policy minutes for Australia coming first, and that's today, Monday. And then Tuesday we have all kinds of news. It's a bank holiday in Japan, but we have German reports, UK, a little bit of US news. Wednesday we have the FOMC, all the FOMC stuff in the US, so that's a big one, plus the MPC meeting minutes for the UK. Excuse me, and Thursday we have all kinds of news as well, home sales and retail sales and so on, and Friday we have some more news. So it's should be a pretty active day. Definitely looking for it to be a pretty active day. Okay, so here's the euro, and here's what we saw happen here. Lot of hopping around up here, and then this little spike, the market closes. We get that Cyprus news, and we have this gap down of about 175 pips. Pretty huge movement down. Now, remember a couple of things on the gaps. Remember that markets like to fill gaps sooner than later, and you can see that the euro has made some pretty solid attempts at it so far. We had this big run up here, a little bit of retracement, a new high, a little bit of retracement. We'll see if this can kind of produce another new high for this pair. And see if we can kind of get up there a little bit higher. Remember, one of the things I talked about was 128.80. We talked about this quite a few times last week as being a solid level that we kind of expected things to hit, and it didn't quite get there. We had that nice little run up towards the end of the week, and I thought maybe 128.80 is out of the picture, and then we get this run down, and we perfectly hit 128.80. The low of the lowest candle here is actually 28.81. So that has turned out to be a very nice level, and you can see this is the low of December, and that's held very, very nicely on the euro here. But here's what we have. We're still in this channel. So even though we peaked out for just a moment, we're still in the channel. So I'm going to see if we have opportunities to actually maybe continue shorting this pair. Remember, a lot of big money is moving into dollar, US dollar, and I think we're going to see some dollar strength maybe sooner than later. And now what we have, this one coincides very nicely, 126.60, 50.60, which is the low here of November, so just the previous month's low from this one that we're currently sitting at. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of retracement and a break of this 128.80 and a run for 126.60. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment. We may end up with a big pin bar here on the 4-hour chart, which is looking like it might be the case. And we may leave that gap a little bit unfilled for the moment. So we're going to be looking at that. We still have about 80 some pips left open. One thing that I'm looking at is just this little trend line right here. We seem to be having a lot of trouble with the 200 moving average on the 15-minute chart, and it looks like we might be breaking back down below that. You can see on the 1-hour chart, if we kind of go back just a little bit, the 200 moving average on the 1 hour, we've been below it, and then a little attempt above, and then right back down below again, and then testing, below, and then we have this little run up again, and once again we're back below it. So the trend is still heavy. This euro has tried to get strong, and it just can't do it, and so I think we're probably leaning more towards the downside than anything. So what I'm looking for currently is from this run here, we saw a bump up to the 50% fib, which is 129.95-ish, and that's a couple of pips away. So I think we might be able to start shorting against this high. I'd like to see if we can get up there just a little bit closer to that area. Um, but I'd like to short against this high number one, or just take a nice little trade at the break of this trend line that we can see here on the 15-minute chart a little bit better. So those are kind of the two things that I'm looking at, and to trade this down into 128.80 and then down through 128.80. So those are a couple of things that I'm looking for in the euro dollar for the moment. So probably number one thing is just shorting against that high currently. As soon as we get a little bit closer, I'd like to maybe only have a 20 pip stop on that one. So let's keep an eye on that. And remember, we may end up with a nice little pin bar on the 4-hour chart. Okay, so pound dollar. Pound dollar's been chopping around trying to make some movements, and it's having a little bit of trouble doing that. And so the pound dollar is turning out to be kind of an interesting little setup here. We see that we have kind of a 1-hour head and shoulders pattern here that looks like it's trying to play out, and it's having a little bit of trouble getting there. We saw a little bit of a break above and a little bit below, and so far, we haven't really seen much happen. So what I'm looking for here is a break below about 150.60, 67. First of all, to just get a little run into that into the missed weekly pivot, and then into the 200 moving average. And ultimately, I think we might have an opportunity to buy somewhere down around 150 on the pound dollar. So that's kind of a couple of things that I'm looking at there. But ultimately, we're still on the pound dollar as well. We're still nicely in a channel, and I actually like shorting against some of these highs towards the top of this channel. So I'm kind of looking for some of that. So again, if this head and shoulders pattern ends up panning out, a break of this low, we'd need stops, above this high. But I think we have a nice opportunity to trade down into that 150 and even potentially through. So that's going to be kind of something that I'll be watching for there. So 150.67. Trading against that high, and likewise, you can see that there's just a little bit of a trend line here. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. And if we get a little break of that, then I'll be looking to trade back up into the high as well, which is around 150. Which a break here would put us around 151.20, give or take. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for the moment there. Aussie dollar seems to be holding pretty well. Remember, we looked at this channel during our UK session. The Aussie dollar is really hanging around in that channel, doing well. It's basically filled this gap. For the most part, we filled the gap, give or take a couple of pips. But we're pretty much there. So you can see that thing seems to be hanging in there pretty well. If we get a reversal candle right here, I kind of like this, and I think we still might get one of those against this high. In which case, I'd be looking to short down into this 103.35 area. Now I think 103.35 is going to be strong enough support that I'm still interested in buying off this area. 103.35 is still a buy zone for me, but if we can get a little bit higher and get some proper candles, reversal candles and so on against this high here, which is around 104.14, 15 area there, then I'm very interested in shorting against that high and seeing if we can get some retesting of the lower part of the channel. So that's kind of what I'm looking at on the Aussie dollar for the moment. And of course, watch the little trend line breaks and so on the smaller time frames. But ultimately, I'm just looking to kind of short against that Friday high, which again is just about 104.15, give or take. As far as the other ones go, Euro Yen's getting interesting. Yen pairs are getting slightly interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about those, but for the moment, focus once again, and it has been all last week and this week, remains on Euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar. So we'll trade it like that, and we should have some good pips today. Remember, we'll have a live daily wrap-up session at 4 p.m. Pacific, and Pacific, Los Angeles, USA time. So join us for that if you can. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you in the chat.